Welcome to the Draknek and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, the producer at Draknek and Friends, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head of Draknek at Draknek and Friends.
Hey there.
Today we're joined by Benjamin Davis, who you may know from his work on multiple Draknek games, including the recently announced The Electrifying Incident. How are you doing today?
Fine, thanks, Syrenne.
Can you sort of introduce yourself with your pronouns and some of the games you've worked on?
So I'm Benjamin Davis, or Ben, he, him. I've worked with Alan and Draknek. I started with A Good Snowman is Hard to Build, and then Cosmic Express and A Monster's Expedition.
And An Electrifying Incident.
Yes, An Electrifying Incident. Before that, I made a woeful game called Sushi Snake that no one's ever heard of. But we don't talk about
that. So how did the two of you meet?
Do you want to?
I barely remember. We're going back like over 10 years. Did we meet through the Coventry, Birmingham game dev scene? Was it?
Yeah, Midlands Indies you were running, right?
Yeah, I barely remember running it. But yeah, so at some point in time, I was running this local game dev event where people would just turn up to a pub and chat about games and the games they're making. You think I was running that and you turned up?
Yeah, and then we decided to do some co-working in this little cafe in town, right? Kahava Cafe.
Yeah. Because there wasn't a lot of game developers. Like it was a local meetup for people in the that city and then a few neighboring cities. But people actually living nearby, it was basically just us and some people at the university.
Everyone kind of lives in Birmingham or Leamington, right? It seemed like.
And we were living in boring Coventry. A city which got bombed in the Second World War and never really recovered. Sorry to any Coventry fans in the audience.
Oof.
It has pockets of nice medieval stuff, and then it's surrounded by concrete. That's how I always think of it.
But yeah, we started co-working, and were we co-working while I was making Soccer Bond? Is that right?
I think so. I was finishing Sushi Snake, and you were making Soccer Bond, and I think they finished up around the same time, and we decided to work on a little Christmas game.
Yeah, just a small 2-week project. We'll make it nice and cute and small, and we'll ship it by Christmas. And that game took 15 months.
Yeah, the idea was that you would just make a little Flash game, right? Because Flash was still a thing then, kind of. That's how I remember it. I would do the drawing and the programming, and you would do the design.
I remember. I do remember pulling this trick on you, actually. Because it was just after I chipped Soccer Bond, and I was very burnt out on programming. And so I was like, oh yeah, it would be very cool to make a small game together. But you're great at art, so you can do the art. But I'm kind of burnt out on programming, so you could do the programming too, right? And you're just that sounds reasonable. That's a reasonable division of labor.
It's only a puzzle game, right? How complex can it be?
Alan.
I wasn't quite thinking of it in that that way at the time. But
I think neither of us were treating it as a big project, right?
Right. Yeah, it was just very low really stakes. This would have been before Soccer Bond shipped on Steam, potentially. So,
right, yeah.
Soccer Bond wasn't making any money. Sushi Snake wasn't making any money. We were just we were both in a position where we'd made enough savings from a previous job that we could just kind of work on games and we're certainly I was in the mindset of I'm making games, I'm going to run out of money, but I'm having fun making games until I run out of money. Is that where you were too?
Yeah, well, I had a very supportive partner who I'm still thankful for. But it's a similar position. I was making this little indie game that I'd posted on TigSource forums, and I think a game journalist had written about it. They look at the forums, write about stuff. And I took this as a sign that I needed to quit my day job. And
Wow, ambitious.
yeah, and I was in a fortunate position where I was young enough and I had a support system, and no dependents, which was so I just went for it and had no idea what I was doing, and I made a game, but obviously didn't really promote it.
I mean, anyone who knew what they were doing just wouldn't do it in the first place. So
yeah, true.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now that I know what I'm doing. But yeah.
Now we know what we're doing. We don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah. Trapped. Unemployable.
I wouldn't call it unemployable. I think you just specialize your talents in a certain way. So what got you into tinkering with game dev in the first place then?
For me, I had a friend in primary school, which is what us Brits call, I don't know what school you call it over in America. Okay, yeah. I was probably 9 or 10. He came from a family with lots of big brothers, so and they were kind of very computer literate for the time. He introduced me to this program called ZZT, which was like a simple ASCII game development thing. It was very restrictive, really, but I mean, some people have made really impressive things in it.
Yeah, it was like Game Maker, but like 20 years earlier or something.
Yeah, I think it was named ZZT so that it would appear at the end of mail order catalogs. so there was that, and the follow-up Megazux, which I worked in more throughout my sort of early teen years. I never really produced anything of note, obviously. It was just kind of, I remember having this floppy disk with it on that we'd take to the computer club at school, and that's how cool we were, Other people were looking at Buffy the Vampire Slayer websites, and I was bringing in a copy of ZZT on a floppy disk. But yeah, that's where I started, and I think throughout my sort of mid to late teens, I was in denial. I was still playing games, but I'd got into playing guitar, and I was in a band, and I thought it was cool, and then kind of led to me kind of denying my destiny as a game developer, I think. I was always going back into the basement, but I didn't want to. I thought I'd be trapped, as a unsociable game developer. No, I mean, I think when I'm working, I'm meeting interesting people, and it's a fun social environment. Even though we're remote, it's we work with great people, I think. And Alan.
Great people, and then Alan. Alan is nothing if not a magnet for great people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like magnets. Opposites attract.
Yeah.
The joke is better when you explain it.
Like all great jokes, better explained.
So, what got you interested in puzzle games at the start? Like, other than Alan? Because Alan has this infectious enthusiasm for this type of game, but like, what interested you in this space?
I kind of just fell into it, I think. I had a job for 2 years, like an actual employment, where I was making Flash games. So for the younger listeners, Flash games. Flash was
you are going to have to explain that.
Flash was a plugin for web browsers.
Yeah, it's like browser games, but they were easier to make, but ran worse.
Yeah, kind of. So it was largely sort of the TV channels would make tie-in games to their children's properties. So like I worked on a couple of Peppa Pig games and that kind of thing. And I had one of the other programmers, it was a very small company, like less than 20 people at its peak. But the kind of lead programmer there, he was into Flash games as the scene as it was then. And he would be like working on little things during his lunchtime. So I was sort of impressionable and did the same kind of thing. And I was looking at jam game prompts, I think, and I can't remember why, but I got inspired to have different things overlapping that were red, green, and blue. So that kind of idea of the light spectrum being split up. And this became a game called Eat Your Dinner, which eventually became Sushi Snake. And I don't know, just by accident, just became a puzzle game.
Hell yeah.
I don't think I'd really played many puzzle games other than like mini games. And I certainly wasn't thinking about puzzle games as a big design space or, this whole community that's there now. I don't know if it was there then and I wasn't exposed to it or.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was so much of a community around puzzle games specifically. But I think there were like Flash games had a lot of puzzle games.
Yeah.
So I feel like there was maybe less like there's a supportive game dev community, and there was a supportive Flash game community, and yeah, it was less about specific genres of games and just more people making interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and Flash in general is a lot of people riffing off of other people's ideas. Like, that was the scene at the time. So, that makes sense. So, Alan cons you into Sokoban. Or, sorry, not Sokoban, Snowman after Sokoban. He's burnt out of Sokoban, weirdly divides the labor. You make Snowman. How does he convince you for Cosmic?
I can't remember how that happened. I think Alan already had this. So that there was an existing puzzle script train game, I remember. I think you reused the graphics from. And you made this game called. Well, you were inspired by it. Let's say.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was very inspired. So yeah, so Candle or Ragzuken made this game. I forget what the name was. But it was just like this pleasant. You're a smiley face. You get to get on and off this train and like switch to the tracks and drive it around. And I took part in Train Jam, I think back in 2014. I think.
God, yeah.
I think it was possibly the year that I got on the train to GDC for Train Jam, and then arriving in San Francisco, we basically clicked release on A Good Snowman's Hard to Build, like the day after I got in, or the day before I left. It's like some kind of really bad. Maybe it was the day before I left, and so we clicked release, and then I got on this train for 36 hours with really spotty Wi-Fi as reviews are coming in.
Great decisions all around, Alan.
I mean, it was fine. Like, I think it was like a nice way to like draw a line under the game's release. Well, actually, that timing doesn't necessarily make sense because I feel like there was actually a gap of like a couple of years between making that prototype on Train Jam and starting Cosmic Express. Now, I don't remember how much of a gap there was between shipping A Good Snowman and starting Cosmic Express, but I don't think it was more than a year.
No, it was, well, I am remembering after Cosmic Express, which was a very short period.
Yeah, Cosmic Express comes out March 2017.
Yes.
It was like an 8-month development time or so that you like to say, Alan?
Yeah, 9 months start to finish, which was wild.
9 months. So that means that you would have started it mid-2016.
Yeah, and I'm going to figure out when I made Train Braining.
I mean, Snowman launched in February 2015.
Yeah, so maybe that adds up.
So there was a year gap between the two. You took your gap year.
At the start of A Good Snowman, Alan, you were living in Coventry.
Yeah.
Right? And during the development cycle, you became nomadic, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, because during the development of A Good Snowman, we just have these calls where I would be on like a different time zone to when I was talking to you last, and it was mostly fine actually, from my memory. But yeah, I was traveling around.
Oh, from your perspective, it was fine.
Yeah.
I remember spending just months on little animations for the monster and.
Yeah, A Good Snowman. We spent a lot of time just like going way more into like tiny details that didn't really matter.
Mm.
They matter. They matter to my spouse.
They're
at
nice,
least.
but like I don't know. They didn't need to add like 9 months to the development time. And then we squeezed the secret of A Good Snowman into like the last 2 weeks.
Yes, I remember.
I'm sorry. What the fuck?
It was great.
What the fuck?
There was a convention, a game development meetup thing in Ghent, was it? In Belgium?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think I remember meeting up
How
with
is
you.
this the first time hearing of this?
We'd been talking about a secret layer, like basically throughout development. And like we'd been talking about it, we'd been thinking about it, but like we'd never prioritized actually making it happen. And then there was that conference in Ghent, which I'd completely forgotten about. And I think prior to that, I'd gone to some kind of conference in the US and bumped into some people and been chatting about the secrets with them. And so, yeah, I think we met up and I was like, oh yeah, I was chatting to these people about these ideas and I'm now really excited about them. And yeah, we just like, it came together. Like we saw how the pieces could fit together to add this component of the game in without too much extra work. And yeah, we just made it happen.
Yeah, easy as that.
Yeah, just adding half the game in 2 weeks. Easy as that. God.
Originally, the idea was that a spoiler for A Good Snowman. Once you finish the game, there's a way of going back through the starting gate and you end up in a reorganized layout of the game. But the original plan, I think, was to just reorganize the main game so that it worked with this layer on top of it, right?
Yeah, so the idea was that, like, when you sit on the bench, like, you can fall asleep and then you're in the mirror world or the dream world, which is spooky vibes. And then you've got the where there are snowmen in the real world, there's like these snowballs in the dream world. And so the original idea was that, every level is meticulously laid out in the main game such that the dream snowballs left behind can make dream snowman. And then, we started making this and we're like, oh, this is like not doable in 2 weeks, but we could have this alternate world, which is like, going back through the entrance gates, which we can just design the puzzles around that. And we don't need to care about the pacing or like which levels are placed next to which levels because you've already completed the levels.
Yeah.
God. This is... How are you managing to exhaust a producer a decade later with your decisions?
I pride myself on my ability to exhaust you retroactively.
I mean, you exhaust me at the time, you exhaust me in the future, and so it only makes sense that you exhaust me in the past.
And like I have actually very mixed feelings about how the secrets turned out in A Good Snowman. Like I think they're conceptually very cool, and I think the actual puzzles are very cool, and I think that the hand-holding of how you get to them is god-awful and is a very weak part of that game. I kind of wish that I could like snip the ending of the game and the start of the secret content and like squish them closer together somehow.
So what you're saying is that you want to remake that game?
No. But
good. That was a test and you passed.
Just a 2.0 update. Just a little 2.0 update, Syrenne.
We already did a 2.0 update. Did you forget about the 2.0 update?
For Snowman?
Yes.
Apparently, yes.
It was part of rolling in the improvements to the Switch version back onto PC.
I'm not sure there was anything for Snowman.
Sure was. Anyways, I'm tired. Moving on.
You asked about Cosmic Express. This is it's going a bit freeform, this, isn't it?
No, go for it.
My memory of that is that it largely happened via email.
Yeah.
The communication. And maybe
I'm sorry, what?
So we were working with Chu as an artist for the first time. I think we'd met her at Amaze.
Yeah,
maybe?
did we meet her at Amaze and we're like, oh, like you seem cool. want to make a game together, and then we figured out what the game would be.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Or am I just like conflating that with then later meeting?
No, here's what it is. Hey Ben, you remember Puzzle Dwarf in Giantland?
Oh yeah, yeah. Your great naming sense.
So after Snowman, we parted ways. I honestly don't remember what I was doing for that year or so, but I think you made various prototypes in PuzzleScript.
Yes.
And a couple of them were these games where you're like a person walking around in a level and you've got this weapon. So you had one where it's a spear and you could like impale crates and then move them around while they're impaled, and one where there was a crossbow and you could shoot the blocks and then this arrow would be sticking out and then you could use that as a lever to move this block. And yeah,
so you mean Bonfire Peaks?
I mean, very different, but yeah, kind of. And you'd made a couple of these games, and we were chatting about like, oh, what if you were in this like interconnected world where you've got one weapon at a time, and you're using that weapon to solve puzzles, and then you get to a point and like, oh, I can swap out my weapon for a different one, and then you're going through a different section of the world with a different weapon, and maybe there would be rooms which had one solution with one weapon and a different solution with another weapon, and so yeah, like you'd made those games, and then I was riffing off them. It's like, oh, I see how you could make these into a bigger project.
Just make every level solvable with a selection of weapons.
Yeah. And yeah, I was calling that idea Puzzle Dwarf in Giantland, which you never got on board with. You hated that name.
Congrats. You figured out that was a terrible name, Ben.
Just more confused by it than hating it.
It's better than weapons and crates.
Yeah, it is better. Like, I mean, I guess my naming sense is descriptive, at least. Puzzle Dwarf.
Puzzle Dwarf. Puzzle Dwarf in Giantland. It's vibes.
No, because here's the thing. More than vibes is memorability and searchability.
I don't know any games called Puzzle Dwarf in Giantland.
I didn't say the ability to not repeat a name. I didn't say uniqueness.
But yeah,
we were about marketing.
We were talking about maybe this would be a game that we'd make together. I think we had some like reference art of like, oh, here's the vibes of the world that we want it to have. And you had learnt your lesson from A Good Snowman. You're like, well, yeah, this is great. We'd love to work together again. But you didn't want to do both the art and the programming again, which very reasonable. So we were looking for an art collaborator, and I think I'd met a bunch of the Klondike folks at GDC, including Chu. I don't remember if you'd met her at the time.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I think you did meet each other before we settled on the Cosmic Express idea. But yeah, we were just chatting. We thought that we'd be a good team, the three of us. And initially the idea was we'd work on this Zelda-y, Metroidvania-y weapon puzzle game. And then I think we sat on it for a bit and thought on it for a bit. I'm like, this is a bit much, right? This is a complicated game. This is very easy to make a bad version of this, or a version of this that is just got massive scope creep.
Yeah. So then you'd made this train braining, right? And I guess we just trying to think of a theme for it. So I suggested like a spacey alien theme, and Chu just produced these great artwork, and it just kind of threw it together, didn't we?
Yeah, because I don't remember if I'd even discussed the idea of train braining, or if you'd just like played it and really liked it and got back to it. But yeah, like you suggested the space theme on that idea, and then Chu created these lovely mock-ups, and like it was immediately like, oh yeah, this is great, let's do this.
It was the first time I was touching Unity as well. I remember. I think you'd done this jam game with, I want to say, Andrew Shoulders, I think.
Yeah. So I think on that 2015 Train Jam, I did Train Braining, and on the 2016 Train Jam, I did a game with Andrew Shoulders, which was a cute puzzle game in Unity.
Yeah, so you kind of just sent me the project for that, and I use that to learn everything I know about Unity.
Which
And
you
then,
needed, for this and for future games.
yeah, I mean, it was before we were working in OpenFL for Snowman, right? Which was very familiar as a Flash developer, but it wasn't really a game engine. So seeing Unity and all these like nice features it had was a bit of a shock to me, but it worked out.
And so, what was your experience working through Cosmic Express? Because that's a game that has a relatively short development cycle, has a lot more secrets than Snowman. Please tell me Alan didn't ask you to add monuments right at the end of development again. And, oh god, oh no.
I don't remember.
That's bad laughter.
I mean,
Yeah, talk to me about
those
that.
those were very simple, to be honest. I think it was
I
kind
think
of
we probably did throw them in, but I think I
yeah,
disagree that there's more secrets in Cosmic Express than there is in Snowman. There might be more, like in terms of playtime, but in terms of like the complexity of them, like the secrets in Cosmic Express to me feel very slight.
yeah. I think Snowman has the coolest secrets, right? The
Right.
whole meta puzzle. I mean,
With Cosmic Express, it's just like, oh, you got to resolve this puzzle.
yeah,
I mean, yes.
But yeah, I do suspect that we threw those in fairly last minute. During development, we had analytics on the puzzles, so I could just see for each level, here's all the possible different solutions people have found to it. So I used those analytics to find levels which had interesting alternate solutions. And then we just added code for specific bonus solutions for specific puzzles. And then added
totally forgot about that. But this is kind of one of the benefits you have is a big community of people that you can just throw to playtest, right? Throughout every game we've done, it's been a big boon, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, playtesting a lot, I think, has been my secret recipe for making good games. And
For sure.
Like actually, since the pandemic, since I stopped traveling, I'm still like there's still a solid online community, but I'm doing less in-person playtesting, which I think is like a very different vibe.
Yeah. Like you say, the analytics were there, they were useful, but they weren't. You can't tell how much someone's enjoying the game, right?
Oh no.
And I think there is something like really nice as a developer to just sit behind someone and watch them enjoy your game, right?
And laugh at them when they fail to solve puzzles.
Yeah. That's what you like, isn't it?
Sometimes. Only sometimes.
I think my favorite exhibit we've done, I cannot remember the name of the show, but we'd asked them, they basically sent around this email to everyone saying, is there anything we need to exhibit? Are there any special things to prepare? And a bit cheekily, I'd sent back saying, oh yeah, we want a big TV and a bench to sit on. And then they provided this, like it wasn't a bed, it was like a couch and TV, and we had the Snowman displaying there. It was really nice to watch sort of small groups of people sit around and solve it together. Still carry that with me today, even though
Sounds like a good experience.
I never I never do much playtesting. I mean, I generally leave it to Alan, but the moments where I have and it's been a good experience, you take those with you. Very often you just feel like you're sitting alone plugging away. But
And then coming off of Cosmic, what was your perspective? This is how I'm going to get into monsters. Ben, what was your perspective on the scope creep that happened with that game?
well, so what I remember about the start of Monster, so I think it was something like a month after we'd released Cosmic Express. We were at a maze in Berlin. I said to Alan, I want to get back working again, and Alan was keen. And we basically launched straight into the next game. And we met up with a few people at a maze and had this discussions about how we want to make a bit of a bigger game and have a bit of a story to it. So it's not just puzzles, right? So Cosmic Express very much is just a pure puzzle game, which works great, I think, for that game. Snowman had maybe some implied story, but not really. So we wanted to be a bit more adventurous and make this like magnum opus game, I think, was always the intention.
The scope
right,
creep
Alan?
was there from the start.
Yes. So we'd set ourselves up for failure in terms of small scope, at least. And I think we just didn't know what we wanted was the big issue.
Yeah, well, like we knew the scale and grandiosity of what we wanted to make, but we didn't know how to do that well, or like how to do that at all, or how to get there.
Yeah. Going back a bit, we had this puzzle script prototype that I'd made, right? And then you'd kind of run with it and made some adjustments and lots more levels. And you were pretty keen that it was going to be a big game, potentially. There was a lot of nuance to explore within the puzzle mechanics. I'd just kind of thrown this thing together, and then you'd given me hints on how to make it an actual puzzle game that works. And
yeah, I mean, so we'd been talking about making something.
Yeah.
We talked about like, oh, here are some puzzle games that we've made in the past, and like what works about them. And we'd identified like, oh, here's a couple of games that are set on islands.
Yeah.
And it's like a nice setting for like this open world game where you can like solve puzzles and get to other puzzles. So I think pretty early on, we decided we wanted to make something set on a series of islands.
I think I had this idea of an exploration puzzle game, is what I was calling it. And it became an open world puzzle game. Yeah.
And we actually got together with an artist, and we were talking about submitting to Stugan.
Yeah.
So like that was kind of the incentive for starting like ideating on this game like a month after shipping Cosmic Express. Was we needed to have a team together to put together a video pitch for Stugan. And we didn't get into Stugan, but at that point we were like talking and like, yeah, okay, I mean, let's make something. And yeah, like the turnaround after shipping Cosmic Express was like a month's downtime, and then like 2 months prototyping and concepting, and then I think we shipped Cosmic Express in March, and you started the Unity version of this game in June, so like less than 3 months after shipping Cosmic.
I remember wanting more of a break, but there was that reason of submitting to Stugan. Yeah. I wonder what would have happened if we'd got in.
Yeah.
I think
we would have
I wasn't totally convinced about going, but it could have.
I think it would have been a cool thing. I think like we pitched, I think possibly we pitched Puzzle Dwarf again.
Right.
But I don't think like it's not like we would have gone to Stugan and then gone, oh well, I guess we've got to make this game.
No.
I think like the game we made could have ended up being quite different, because I think prototyping and starting out making a game during like a 10-week like Getaway, where you're in person. It's like not the way we've ever started making a game. So
Yeah.
I think we could have got a lot done at something like Stugan. I think we would still have fallen into similar traps later on, though.
I think we would have had fun.
Oh yeah,
That's the main thing, right? You just
yeah. That's why everyone makes games, is to have fun.
yeah. Games are fun. So therefore game development is fun.
Definitely. Definitely. Completely fun, not stressful. Perfect.
You're there to absorb the stress, right, Syrenne?
Oh, yeah, that's what happens. Okay. This is
Wow.
for listeners who are not familiar. Ben is describing at me as sort of the classic meme of the veteran over the sleeping child taking all of the knives and grenades, when in actuality the child is holding them as a human shield and throwing me into it because Alan will just say things to stress me out sometimes. And then I'll ask him what the fuck, and he'll say, I don't know, I was thinking about this. What do you think?
Hey, Syrenne, I don't say it because I want to stress you out.
Not always. Sometimes you explicitly do.
I get one troll a month.
I'm such an enabler as well, aren't I? I'm just far too laid back, so I just run with whatever.
I mean, I think both of us have this deep desire of like, oh, I can see a way that we can make this game better, and
Yes.
I can calculate, yeah, it would add like roughly this amount of extra time to the project, and it would make the project this amount better. Like run the math, like, yeah, that's a good trade-off. And like,
But I'm also trying to balance, like, it's not just about the input versus output, because there's also like the stress input. There's other extenuating factors. There's your bandwidth. I'm always
bandwidth is for losers.
I am the only person at Draknek and Friends. That's not true. Mari also sometimes. But in terms of the game development side, I am constantly trying to monitor, does Alan have too much on his plate? Because Alan won't do that himself. He'll just get burnt out. He'll just push himself and get excited by things and then burn out. And the reason that you haven't gotten newly burned out on something in years is because I'm trying to fight you. Anyways.
I think the difference between us, though, Alan, is that the things I spend months working on are things that nobody notices. It's like all the little animations in Snowman, or in a Monsters Expedition, I spent ages on all these different log interaction animations. That
oh no, those
really
log
proud of,
interactions, like they're not flashy, but like that game does not hold together without the months of painstaking work you put into making every possible combination of logs interacting with other logs behaving correctly.
Yes, that is because when you're playing a Monsters Expedition, you need to have trust that the game trusts you and the game has thought about it. Because if it ever feels like the game hasn't thought about it, then you stop trusting the game as much. Like that actually is, I agree with Alan, that is actually like a crucial thing. Beyond the level of polish.
but I bet if you ask 100 people what their favorite thing about it is, no one will mention the log.
No, they're all.
I mean,
they're going to mention the raft tutorial, and then they're going to mention their favorite exhibit, right?
Yeah.
And if the 5% of players that have found a friend are going to mention the friends.
I actually think I've seen the smooth animations and like ability to input as quickly or slowly as you want. I've seen that referenced a fair amount with Monsters Expedition being like oh, you want to do arbitrary player inputs interrupting animations? Hey, Monsters Expedition is your go-to reference for how to do that well.
That's true.
Cool.
And that was all Ben.
I think you pushed for that though. Like,
I mean, sure, but you were the one doing the work.
All right, I'll take it. Yeah.
Also, wow. Okay, I take that back. On Steam, we are at 27% of players have made a friend.
Nice.
That is way higher than I expected.
I mean, there is 160 of them, so
It's got to be the higher than the average Steam player, right?
That's the thing, though, right? Is like there's a lot of them, but it's not actually that easy to get most. Like, it's like only like 10 or 15 that I would genuinely call easy, and they're scattered around the world.
I explain my joke that I just slipped by.
Oh, please.
It's that 27% of a Monsters Expedition players have made a friend. It's higher than the average Steam player.
Yes. So many Steam players have no friends. 5.3% have
self-own.
Yes. 21% of Steam players have seen the end credits, which is lower than I expected. 5% have seen all of the exhibits, and 3-ish% have 100% of the game. It's weird. It's weird with that game to think about, like, because everyone's different play experience can be so significant. Like, someone could put 15 hours into that game, never see the end, and then be satisfied. But also, crucially, have had a completely different experience than someone else. Open world games, man, they're weird.
I think this was a thing Alan was very consciously thinking about, was letting people have choice, that letting people not get stuck and letting them end when they've had enough, I think was...
Yeah, I wanted it to always be very easy for your forwards momentum to carry you through the game. For you to just be on an island and you take the path of least resistance and you make progress further through the game.
But obviously, a lot of people are their own worst enemy, aren't they? And they will
they're like,
bang their head against...
Like, here's path A, here's path B. I'm going to go along path A until I figure out if that's the main path, and then I'm going to go back to path B.
Our podcast editor, who is finally going to get an on-episode call-out, not just a credit, she is exactly that person. I watched her try, and because the first thing is that loop, like the very first branching path, either one will get you to the correct destination. It's still funneling you to the tutorial, but one is slightly easier and one is slightly harder. And she did the slightly harder one first, just stared at it for a long time, finally got through it, and then went to the easy one and then said, boo.
Well, Alan didn't do it very well then, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like something I said about this game was that my goal was to have it be the perfect difficulty curve for everyone, and I did fail because it's only the perfect difficulty curve for like 95% of players.
Oh no! Yeah. Oh no! You're not. You didn't build in a fucking AI to monitor if the player needs a on-the-fly difficulty rebalance. Oh no, the horror.
It's fine, we'll do that in the next game.
No, we will not use AI.
System, right?
No, we will not use AI, Alan, not even as a joke.
Not bad AI, good AI.
Good AI.
Not even as a joke. Remember that there are people listening to this that don't know you.
Right.
Oh, it's fine. Bad AI couldn't even do what we're talking about. We just put it in a pitch deck, and investors would believe it could work, even though it can't work.
God. Yes, listeners, this is what my daily workday is like. So, Electrifying Incident. We shipped Monsters Expedition, and Draknek, Alan and I continue on for years working on publishing initiatives and ports.
You became a game publisher.
Yeah. Ports of your older games. I I distinctly remember asking you if you wanted to get involved with adding controller support for Cosmic Express and moving it from Unity 5 to Unity 2020, and you said fucking no.
Very
That's
sensible.
that's how I speak, yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. No, I think you said, no, I'd rather not, or something like that. But in my head, that's just read as the polite Brit to blunt American, just read as fucking no.
To be honest, I am very rude on a day-to-day basis. I'm just on my best behavior
Oh
for the
yeah,
podcast.
definitely. So then Alan finally last year, 2023, for the people who are listening to this when it comes out, aka everyone except for us three. 2023, Alan sort of starts recovering from some of his game dev burnout, his puzzle design burnout, and is inspired to start working on some things. We start working on some prototypes for projects that we're not going to talk about here today because one of them might actually be coming out in the relatively near future, but is almost assuredly still unannounced. But then, as part of that, we decided to make an Electrifying Incident as an engine exploration in Godot. Do you want to talk about that and your experiences working on that? Like, this is where I'm gonna fail as like an interviewer because I know what your thoughts on Godot are based on this, and like we've talked about how it went in a postmortem, but like, what are your thoughts about working on puzzle games with Alan again?
So it's been quite a long time since I've done professional game development. I say professional, but I don't know how professional you can call me. But yeah, like Alan, I was pretty burnt out after a Monsters Expedition, and just kind of life happened. But yeah, eventually you just need to get back on the horse, don't you? But it was so easy once we had the team assembled and I had the game engine open. It just kind of came back, and it was we had a really nice team there working on it. It was inexplicably huge team for some reason, which I guess just thinking back in my history, it's like we always start small, and now it's just like we know exactly what we need, so everyone's there from the start, right?
We spent for this might very well be people's first time hearing about the dev process for this, so I guess we can go into it. This started as a kind of an internal evaluation process for Godot, the game engine.
Yep.
And we didn't want to spend more than 6 weeks on this. We knew that going in, that this was going to be a 6-week project. Between when we're recording this episode and when this episode goes live, we're expecting to do a little bit more polish on it. But for the most part, 6 weeks. And so really kind of what happened was we just identified what are the roles that we're going to need for this. Like if we're gonna make basically a shippable project within 6 weeks, what are the disciplines? Who's needed on what team? It probably benefits us to have some people with Godot experience directly, as well as people like Ben who are going to be learning Godot through this. And we went from there. So yeah, we had a much bigger team than one would expect for a very small game, but it meant that the whole thing got knocked out in 6 weeks.
Sounds very sensible when you lay it out like that.
I thought really like this was my pitch to Alan for like the 6-week scale of everything. Like I tried to think really like everything really carefully through.
Yeah, and then we did the post-mortem questionnaire, and I don't think I was at all helpful.
But I wouldn't say at all helpful.
What it did do for me was give me confidence again, I think, which was great.
Right, yeah, because you'd been like noodling on small projects a little bit, but you hadn't like sat down and gone like, oh, I'm going to make a game to like a polished level for like since Monsters Expedition.
I mean, I released my little puzzle script game.
I know. I mean, I love a hermit's what was it? Hermit Crab.
Hermit's New Home.
Hermit's New Home.
Yeah.
Like it's a great puzzle script game, but like it doesn't have like it's a puzzle script
you're
game.
right.
Like it's not a polished 3D experience.
True.
Yeah, turns out we all still know what we're doing.
Yep.
Shocker.
And yeah, like we haven't yet mentioned, but yeah, this is a remake of a existing puzzle script game that I made like a decade earlier. And like having that as a template for what we're making was like the only way it was viable in a 6-week timeline. Like any new project, if we'd been trying to make it in 6 weeks, would have got bogged down in scope creep, would have got bogged down in like edge cases, would have got bogged down in like, oh, we need to explore this thing, we need to explore that
this
thing.
Opened on day one with a recording of all of the puzzles and their solutions, and me sitting in an all hands with Alan there and declaring there will be no new content added, there will be no scope to creep. This is a remake. We're doing this.
I mean, really more of a remaster, wouldn't you say, Syrenne?
No. That's not what that is.
We're definitely not currently embarking on a 6-week project where we don't know the scope.
God.
Well, no, the project that we're currently embarking on, which we're not currently talking about, that's just a different kind of fact-finding exercise.
It is. Oh. No, the to be clear, a remaster is like if we put out a Monsters Expedition at a higher resolution and a higher frame rate, and like we added ray tracing or some shit. That's a remaster. It'd be the same code. This is not a remaster.
High resolution texture pack.
Yeah, this is not a. But oh god, like those fan made like, what if Mario was realistic in UE5? I'm just imagining the monster in that now. Oh god, I'm gonna have to tell Adam about that nightmare. All right, we're probably getting to about the wrap up point. Is there anything else that you wanted to chat about, Ben?
No, I'm not much of a chatter, to be honest.
I don't know. You've been chatting a lot, and it's been very enjoyable.
No, I should probably get back to work.
Yeah.
It's 5 p.m., Ben. Like, you can call it a day.
Hang on. Alan is on... This is... Okay. For
is
reference...
Syrenne about to call me out for my working hours?
For reference, Ben, Alan is completely right. Alan, what the fuck? The two of us have a call together in 3 hours.
Look, I'm the owner of Draknek. I'm obligated to work weird hours when necessary.
No, you're not.
Obligated is strong, but I choose. I can choose to work late hours when I like. And anyway, I don't start working until noon most days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I started work today at 9 a.m. 2 minutes after I woke up. So let's wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And thank you for listening to the Draknek and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoise.bandcamp.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis. Our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.